What makes teaching online unique is that it uses the internet, especially the World Wide Web, as the primary means of communication. Thus, when you teach online, you don't have to be someplace to teach. You don't have to lug your briefcase full of papers or your laptop to a classroom, stand at a lectern, scribble on a chalkboard, or grade papers in a stuffy room while your students take a test. You don't even have to sit in your office waiting for students to show up for conferences. You can hold office hours on weekends or at night after dinner. You can do all this while living in a small town in Wyoming or a big city like Bangkok, even if you're working for a college whose administrative offices are located in Florida or Dubai. You can attend an important conference in Hawaii on the same day that you teach your class in New Jersey, logging on from your laptop via the local cafe's wireless hotspot or your hotel room's high-speed network. Online learning offers more freedom for students as well. They can search for courses using the web, scouring their institution or even the world for programs, classes, and instructors that fit their needs. Having found an appropriate course, they can enroll and register, shop for their books, read articles, listen to lectures, submit their homework assignments, confer with their instructors, and receive their final grades, all online. They can assemble in virtual classrooms, joining other students from diverse geographical locales, forging bond and friendships not possible in conventional classrooms, which are usually limited to students from a specific geographical area. American English is, without doubt, the most influential and powerful variety of English in the world today. There are many reasons for this. First, the United States is, at present, the most powerful nation on earth, and such power always brings with it influence. Indeed, the distinction between a dialect and a language has frequently been made by reference to power. As has been said, a language is a dialect with an army. Second, America's political influence is extended through American popular culture, in particular through the international reach of American films, movies, of course, and music. As Kahane has pointed out, the internationally dominant position of a culture results in a forceful expansion of its language. The expansion of language contributes to the prestige of the culture behind it. Third, the international prominence of American English is closely associated with the extraordinarily quick development of communications technology. Microsoft is owned by an American, Bill Gates. This means a computer's default setting for language is American English, although of course this can be changed to suit one's own circumstances. In short, the increased influence of American English is caused by political power and the resultant diffusion of American culture and media, technological advance, and the rapid development of communications technology. In 1815 on the island of Sumbawa in Indonesia, a handsome and long-quiescent mountain named Tambora exploded spectacularly, killing 100,000 people with its blast and associated tsunamis. It was the biggest volcanic explosion in 10,000 years, 150 times the size of Mount St. Helens, equivalent to 60,000 Hiroshima-sized atom bombs. News didn't travel terribly fast in those days. In London, the Times ran a small story, actually, a letter from a merchant, 7 months after the event. But by this time Tambora's effects were already being felt. 36 cubic miles of smoky ash, dust, and grit had diffused through the atmosphere, obscuring the sun's rays and causing the earth to cool. Sunsets were unusually, but blearily colorful, an effect memorably captured by the artist J.M.W. Turner, who could not have been happier, but mostly the world existed under an oppressive, dusky pall. It was this deathly dimness that inspired the Byron lines above. Spring never came and summer never warmed. 1816 became known as the year without summer. Crops everywhere failed to grow. In Ireland, a famine and associated typhoid epidemic killed 65,000 people. In New England, the year became popularly known as 1800 and froze to death. Morning frosts continued until June and almost no planted seed would grow. Short of fodder, livestock died or had to be prematurely slaughtered. In every way it was a dreadful year, almost certainly the worst for farmers in modern times, yet globally the temperature fell by only about 1.5 degrees Fahrenheit. Earth's natural thermostat, as scientists would learn, is an exceedingly delicate instrument. Slightly less than 1 in 5 carers, 19%, were primary carers, 475,000 people. That is, they were the main carer of a person who was limited in carrying out the core everyday activities of mobility, communication, or self-care. Both primary carers and the larger group of other carers, close to 2 million, contribute to the well-being of older people and people with disabilities. However, because they care for people who otherwise would have difficulty carrying out basic, everyday activities, there is particular interest in primary carers, in the contribution they make, their well-being, labor force experiences, motivations, and the support they receive in caring. Primary carers were more likely than other carers to be assisting someone who lived in the same household, 81% compared with 76%. As with caring as a whole, the likelihood of being a primary carer increased with age to peak at age 55 to 64 years, where 1 in 20 people were primary carers. However, rather than then declining, the likelihood of being a primary carer remained at around this level among the older age groups. Consequently, primary carers had a somewhat older age profile than other carers. The median age of primary carers was 52 years, compared with 47 years for other carers. Primary carers were more likely than other carers to be female, 11% compared with 50%, and less likely to be in the labor force, 39% compared with 60%. Women not in the labor force were by far the largest single group among primary carers, 44%. In contrast, men employed full-time were the largest single group among other carers, 25%. Consistent with their lower labor force participation, primary carers had lower personal incomes than other carers, a median gross income of $231 per week compared with $321 per week, and were more likely to have a government pension or allowance as their main source at income, 55% compared with 35%. Malaysia is one of the most pleasant, hassle-free countries to visit in Southeast Asia. Aside from its gleaming 21st-century glass towers, it boasts some of the most superb beaches, mountains, and national parks in the region. Malaysia is also launching its biggest-ever tourism campaign in effort to lure 20 million visitors here this year. More than 16 million tourists visited in 2005, the last year for which complete statistics were available. While the majority of them were from Asia, mostly neighboring Singapore, Thailand, Indonesia, Brunei, China, Japan and India, a growing number of Western travelers are also making their way to this Southeast Asian tropical paradise. Of the 885,000 travelers from the West, 240,000 were from the United Kingdom, 265,000 from Australia, and 150,000 from the US. Any tourist itinerary would have to begin in the capital, Kuala Lumpur, where you will find the Petronas Twin Towers, which once comprised the world's tallest buildings and now hold the title of second tallest. Both the 88-story towers soar 1,480 feet high and are connected by a sky bridge on the 41st floor. Also worth visiting is the Central Market, a pre-war building that was the main wet market for the city and has now been transformed into an arts and cultural center. The limestone temple Bata Caves, located 9 miles north of the city, have a 328-foot-high ceiling and feature ornate Hindu shrines, including a 141-foot-tall gold-painted statue of a Hindu deity. To reach the caves, visitors have to climb a steep flight of 272 steps. In Sabah State on Borneo Island, not to be confused with Indonesia's Borneo, you'll find small mushroom-shaped Sipadan Island, off the coast of Sabah, rated as one of the top 5 diving sites in the world. Sipadan is the only oceanic island in Malaysia, rising from a 2,300-foot abyss in the Celebes Sea. You can also climb Mount Kinabalu, the tallest peak in Southeast Asia, visit the Sepulak Orang Yutan Sanctuary, go whitewater rafting and catch a glimpse of the bizarre proboscis monkey, a primate found only in Borneo with a huge pendulous nose, a characteristic pot belly, and strange honking sounds. While you're in Malaysia, consider a trip to Malacca. In its heyday, this southern state was a powerful Malay sultanate and a booming trading port in the region. Facing the Straits of Malacca, this historical state is now a place of intriguing Chinese streets, antique shops, old temples and reminders of European colonial powers. Another interesting destination is Penang, known as the Pearl of the Orient. This island off the northwest coast of Malaysia boasts of a rich Chinese cultural heritage, good food, and beautiful beaches. If you've been buying sports gels to keep you going during your workout, you might want to try honey instead. According to findings presented today at the annual Experimental Biology Conference, honey delivers a significant performance boost to athletes during strenuous exercise. Numerous studies have singled out carbohydrates as a critical nutrient in endurance exercise, says principal investigator Richard Kreider of the University of Memphis Exercise and Sport Nutrition Laboratory. Most of the studies to date have shown supplementation with glucose to provide the extra staying power. We were pleased to find that honey, a cocktail of various natural sugars, performed just as well. The team let 9 competitive male cyclists cycle for 64 kilometers each week for 3 weeks, feeding them honey, dextrose gel, or a flavored, calorie-free placebo. Participants received 15 grams of that supplement along with 250 milliliters of water before they raced and then every 16 kilometers while cycling. Both the honey and the dextrose gel led to better times and more cycling power among the athletes, as compared with the placebo's effects. While the dextrose gel slightly outperformed honey, the difference was negligible, leading the researchers to conclude that honey can be a natural and effective carbohydrate source for endurance athletes. UCLA neurology professor Paul Thompson and his colleagues scanned the brains of 23 sets of identical twins and 23 sets of fraternal twins. Since identical twins share the same genes while fraternal twins share about half their genes, the researchers were able to compare each group to show that myelin integrity was determined genetically in many parts of the brain that are key for intelligence. These include the parietal lobes, which are responsible for spatial, reasoning, visual processing and logic, and the corpus callosum, which pulls together information from both sides of the body. The researchers used a faster version of a type of scanner called a HARDI, high angular resolution diffusion imaging. Think of an MRI machine on steroids that takes scans of the brain at a much higher resolution than a standard MRI. While an MRI scan shows the volume of different tissues in the brain by measuring the amount of water present, HARDI tracks how water diffuses through the brain's white matter, a way to measure the quality of its myelin. HARDI measures water diffusion, said Thompson, who is also a member of the UCLA Laboratory of Neuroimaging. If the water diffuses rapidly in a specific direction, it tells us that the brain has very fast connections. If it diffuses more broadly, that's an indication of slower signaling and lower intelligence. When Christopher Columbus arrived at Hispaniola during his first transatlantic voyage in the year AD 1492, the island had already been settled by Native Americans for about 5,000 years. The occupants in Columbus's time were a group of Arawak Indians called Taínos who lived by farming, were organized into 5 chiefdoms, and numbered around 500,000. The estimates range from 100,000 to 2 million. Columbus initially found them peaceful and friendly, until he and his Spaniards began mistreating them. Unfortunately for the Taínos, they had gold, which the Spanish coveted but didn't want to go to the work of mining themselves. Hence the conquerors divided up the island and its Indian population among individual Spaniards, who put the Indians to work as virtual slaves, accidentally infected them with Eurasian diseases, and murdered them. By the year 1519, 27 years after Columbus's arrival, that original population of 500,000 had been reduced to about 11,000, most of whom died that year of smallpox to bring the population down to 3,000. Here's a term you're going to hear much more often, plug-in vehicle, and the acronym PV. It's what you and many other people will drive to work in 10 years and more from now. At that time, before you drive off in the morning, you will first unplug your car, your plug-in vehicle. Its big onboard batteries will have been fully charged overnight, with enough power for you to drive 50 to 100 kilometers through city traffic. When you arrive at work, you'll plug in your car once again, this time into a socket that allows power to flow from your car's batteries to the electricity grid. One of the things you did when you bought your car was to sign a contract with your favorite electricity supplier, allowing them to draw a limited amount of power from your car's batteries should they need to, perhaps because of a blackout or very high wholesale spot power prices. The price you get for the power the distributor buys from your car would not only be most attractive to you, it would be a good deal for them too, their alternative being very expensive power from peaking stations. If, driving home or for some other reason your batteries looked like running flat, a relatively small but quiet and efficient engine running on petrol, diesel or compressed natural gas, even biofuel, would automatically cut in, driving a generator that supplied the batteries so you could complete your journey. Concerns over peak oil, increasing greenhouse gas emissions, and the likelihood that by the middle of this century there could be 5 times as many motor vehicles registered worldwide as there are now, mean that the world's almost total dependence on petroleum-based fuels for transport is, in every sense of the word, unsustainable. Scientists believe they may have found a way to prevent complications that can arise following cataract surgery, the world's leading cause of blindness. Detailing why complications can occur after surgery, researchers from the University of East Anglia, UEA, explained that while cataract surgery works well to restore vision, a few natural lens cells always remain after the procedure. Over time, the eye's wound healing response leads these cells to spread across the underside of the artificial lens, which interferes with vision, causing what's known as posterior capsule opacification, or secondary cataract. UEA's School of Biological Sciences academic, Dr. Michael Wormstone, who led the study, said, secondary visual loss responds well to treatment with laser surgery. But as life expectancy increases, the problems of cataract and posterior capsule opacification will become even greater in terms of both patient well-being and economic burden. It's essential that we find better ways to manage the condition in future. As a result, researchers are designing new artificial lenses that can be placed into a capsular bag that stays open, instead of shrink-wrapping closed, which currently occurs. It is believed that, through the new approach, fluid in the eye can flow around the artificial lens, therefore, diluting and washing away the cell signaling molecules that encourage cell regrowth.